So, as a PhD student, you often feel like you are overworked and underappreciated. This is a really normal process that we all go through, and we feel like that as we are doing our journey with the PhD process. And it doesn't matter whether you are a PhD student or you're actually a professor, everybody feels like that in the profession. But I want to talk about that today. I think it's a really important thing that we need to talk about. So, when I was doing my PhD, I remember this sort of moment that I had a bunch of scholarships. I was fully paid in Canada. I had what was called OGS, Ontario Graduate Scholarship, and I also had a SHIRK scholarship at the end of it, paid for a significant portion of it. But guess what? It was, I believe, my salary at the end of the day was $30,000. Of that, the school took $10,000 of that to pay for my tuition. And at the end of I think it was 4 or 5 years, that funding ran out, and I spent 2 more years trying to scramble to find money, and I found a really terrible postdoc position. My first one didn't work out. It was a really bad experience. And then after that, I found another one, which was my old master supervisor. He agreed to pay me a little bit, and I'm forever I forever have gratitude for him. And he paid me, I think it was $10,000 for 6 months, and I'm forever feeling appreciative of that. But here's the thing, right? All of this, the whole time I was working, I was doing the grind, just like many of you have been doing. And what I realized in the process, there was a moment, I remember the day, I was about 3 or 4 years in, and I was just feeling absolutely miserable with who I am. Because I could feel all of the pressure on me, just like today, I feel all the pressure on me. And I feel all of the anxiety that if I don't do this, I'm not going to get a job. And I got up and I decided two things. The first one is I could quit. And as long as I know I can quit at any time, that made me feel so good with who I was. And then the second thing was knowing that I could smile. It's a choice to actually decide to like who I am as an individual and push away the outside world as much as I possibly can. So what has happened at that moment, that sort of snapping point, I remember it to the day, I remember it to the moment, it sticks with me, that it was the time that I just decided I wasn't going to let the world push me around, and I wasn't going to let everything where I am at this moment pushed me around. So I decided that I was going to take control of my own life. And I think you need to go through that moment where you just decide to do that. You go through this process of thinking of, hey, I'm okay with who I am. And as long as I'm okay, that's all that actually matters. And yes, you need to eat. The PhD process makes you pretty impoverished, right? Like, I'm not saying any of these problems are not real. I'm not saying that PhD students should not get paid more. I deeply believe that they should get paid more. Creates an adverse selection problem that happens. And that there's just a lot of problems, but there's a lot of problems in everything in life, right? I can go through and I can look at the news, look at any of the political news, and I can decide to absorb all of that stuff. And if I just absorb all of that hate, my life is going to feel full of hate and full of anxiety. And yes, I do take on a lot of stuff in my brain, in my brain and on my heart. I've taken all that kind of stuff. I do, just like probably you do. But I decide that today is going to be the day that I am going to be okay with who I am. And I think that's what you need to do. If you are feeling overworked, you're feeling underappreciated, you just say, hey, I'm good enough and I'm going to do this. And that means stopping with sort of chasing things right? Chasing all of the sort of success and stuff. By the way, it's never going to happen. Nobody's ever going to say that, hey, you're this sort of very successful individual. If that does happen to you, man, you are the fortunate few. You're the chosen one, right? Everybody should look at. And you truly are the chosen one if that actually does happen. There's a few people that does happen to, but most people it's not. The vast majority, you are just putting in your time and putting in your effort, and that's where it's a choice where you just decide, hey, I could live my whole life in a tremendous amount of anxiety. I can live my whole life feeling miserable about my situation, or I can just let go, and I can create a boundary between me and the outside world. And as long as I have a boundary between me and the outside world, I'm fine. I just get up in the morning, right? Maybe I do a video, like I'm a little weird this way. I do a little video for you, and then I go into work and I do my work, and then I go home, or I do a little swim, and then I go home, have dinner, and go to bed. And that's it. And as long as I know that is my life, that is a routine that I have, everything is going to be fine. And you have to let yourself go and realize that you're going to be fine throughout the process. And if you have to quit because you don't have any money coming in, if you have to find something else, that is totally fine. Nothing is going to happen. And if there's somebody else that is going to make you feel bad about that big decision that you had to make and didn't not cheer you on, man, what a terrible person that is, right? That is their problem. They should not be doing that to you. It's really you making this very difficult choice and realize it's a very difficult choice. And so as long as you realize that, hey, I can quit at any time, and I can choose to smile, I could choose to be somebody that I'm okay with myself, I think that's important. Now, when I go into work, I kind of feel grumpy. I do. I feel really miserable when I go into work. But when I sit down and actually do my work and I'm in that moment, I feel like the world just disappears. And I think that is a sign for me that I'm actually doing something that I should be doing. But, it's about, and that's where I push away the outside world, because I know as soon as I go into the office, I have all of those sort of stresses that I feel, the pressure to perform, that you need to get X number of, I don't know, whatever it is, like X number of, for me, it's X number of publications, but those publications are impossible to get. Well, what I need to do when I walk in, I feel all of that anxiety, I feel all that stress, but then as soon as I get into my office and I get down, I feel okay. So at this moment, when I am doing my thing, I try to ignore it all, and I try to just enjoy me being a person and know that I can quit at any time and I'm going to be perfectly better off. In fact, if I know if I quit, I'm probably going to be far better off, because I can get an industry job that pays far more, gives me all sorts of opportunities, and I have much more job mobility than what I have. So as long as you realize that, you go into the process, you're okay with who you are as an individual. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.